So I may be an arch villain, but darn it, if Derek didn't say in the last broadcast, I have a good smile, don't I? Actually, I need to shave. The old mustache is getting to be a soup strainer. All right. So while I'm eating dinner, in a bit of a frantic pace here in front of you all, I wanted to talk about Session Zero, and you know what, Alzi? You are in a unique position to kind of be a guest star as well. In fact, I don't know, Alzi, if you wanted to go into a voice chat and kind of be a co-DM in discussing this, but if not, I can go through the Session Zero that we had at my tabletop for the public game I run at the store as we're switching over into Tomb of Annihilation. So what I'll do... set this down. I also have a nice big pitcher of water. Pardon me. How professional, right, everyone? I am an arch villain. For those of you who have played in Dungeons and Dragons, you may be familiar with the concept of a Session Zero. And Session Zero is... Look, Alzi. It may be my enemies, but at least I serve them, I cook them and serve them well. A Session Zero is meant to have the party get to know each other. Maybe work out a couple bubbles. Maybe, get their nose bloodied a little bit, or at least get a little bit of blood on their own weapon. As everyone comes together. I would recommend, even if you are an experienced DM or an experienced PC, and you are planning on starting a new session, to arrange for a Session Zero. It helps set the stage for the campaign, and it also, well, kind of like what Alzi was talking about. Am I gonna have 3 barbarians in my party? Maybe that happens, but in 5th edition, that's fine. You can roll 3 barbarians and have them be 3 different characters. Now, Alzi might cry because his monsters could get punished. There's a give and a take. But the characters might come together and say, well, okay, so 3 of us are barbarians. How are we going to play through this? Does one want to actually go armor, shield, and one weapon barbarian? Does the other want to be the, loincloth, a belt, and a greatsword, and that's it? Does the other want to, instead of going berserker, do you want to take on the mysticism of the totem warrior and take on these animalistic aspects? Maybe you dress in furs, or you wear turtle shells, or things along those lines. And this would allow you to get together and to talk about it with each other as PCs, as well as talk about it in front of and with the DM, so that if you do need to make adjustments, you can do so. Or, for instance, Alzi, if you told your players, we're going to use PHB only standard array, you might have a player who misheard you or didn't get that. Or kind of like what I had at my session, my Session Zero today, where someone had taken the Haunted One background, which is out of Curse of Strahd. And so what I'm doing is I'm allowing PHB only, or if there's supplemental stuff in the module, then I will allow that to make it thematic and also to make it fair, so that people who sit down at the table will still have access to the books and the information. And that way I'm not forcing people to buy supplements, or if people don't have supplements, that they feel left out or behind. Hey, Civil, instead of Berserker, I thought Totem was the default. I would imagine the other way around, Civil. Most people are like, oh, a Barbarian, yeah, you're a Berserker. What's all this touchy-feely, one with animals, paint with all the colors of the wind stuff? Is there a semi-cleric or semi-paladin subclass for barbarians? I would have to take a look. I'd have to take a look in some of the supplemental books, Pneumonica. I think the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide does have something like that. It does have a third option for barbarians. I don't know offhand which it is, though. Like a lot of nature stuff. Zebra? Actually, talking about a unicorn in knowledge nature, when I was on D&D time yesterday with Pete and Jeremy, a scenario similar to that came up. And if you haven't, I suggest going into... where did I drop it off? I think I put it into the clips section. Yeah, if you go to stream clips in our Discord, and you click on the video that you see me sandwiched in between Pete and Jeremy, you may find some interesting content that you would really enjoy there, Zebracorn. The exhaustion's a big turnoff. It can be. I mean, you're getting your hamburger today for payment on Tuesday. Depending on the abilities that or the spells that your other party members take, you can remove the exhaustion. Or it takes a day to sleep off one level. So it could be threatening. It's really up to the player then to take it to that next step if they wanted. Actually, here, I'll even put it here. Oh, no data was returned. Well, that's, is it down? Huh, I wonder if they took it down or something. I'll have to talk to them and see if they had a copy of that video. Okay, well, the range dichotomy is kind of the big difference between a barb and a fighter. They're swingy while fighters are reliable output. Yeah. You can't even really call barbs just like spike damage. Not necessarily. But anyway, you know what? This is why you have a session 0. Right? You talk about it. In fact, for PCs, it might even be a time to bargain with your DM. As a PC, if you play a Berserker and you say, man, this exhaustion thing is really... I love everything, but exhaustion's going to kill me. And it may, if you do it enough. So while you all are talking and you're throwing around ideas, you might tell or you might suggest to your DM, well, look, we have a wizard in the party, and can they, they're good at alchemy. Can they make a potion that will, like an energy drink, that will get me over a level of exhaustion? Without having to spend a spell or something, but maybe it costs 5 gold pieces. And you as a DM sit back and you say, well, I know this character loves brewing potions, is into alchemy, and I know this player really wants to play a barbarian. I don't necessarily see a need because they're paying a cost to deny them that ability, because it'll make both characters more fun to play to both the players. So sure, Wizard, you can spend 5 gold in material to make an energy drink supplement for your Barbarian. And Barbarian, you can, if you drink this drink before battle, and it'll take a minute to drink or something, then for the next hour, if you rage, or at least for your first level of exhaustion for frenzying as a berserker, I will not count that as a level of exhaustion. So that means you could get 2 in, and you'll only suffer 1 level of exhaustion. And so it's creating a bit of a predictive, a bit of a predictive window. A time can run out, and there's a condition to be met. But if the Barbarian wants to, get ready to go into combat, the Barbarian can slam back that, 5-hour energy, that monster, that bang, venom. There's all sorts of energy drinks that are out there. And the first one is on the Wizard, right? Since the potion will negate that first level of exhaustion. And that might not have occurred unless everyone was getting together and putting their brains to work and creating synergy. Because now, the Barbarian, who maybe is a wild child, loves nature and all this, has a vested interest in the Wizard, who it tends to just be antisocial, lives in the city, doesn't know how to survive. 2 different personalities, 2 different goals, but in the group, they're together because of that opportunity. I feel like we talked about this Barbarian exhaustion stuff the first time I found this channel. Did we, Civil? By this point, because we've been a community for so long, I sometimes am having difficulty recalling various characters or various times that active people like you come in and we start discussing. What if a bard... Well, so a bard does do that, Bro Applier, for smooth jazz, and that's their resting capability, where you get a few extra hit points for spending hit dice during a short rest. Diadems, can I turn my mic volume up a little bit? Sure. I hope this is better. Testing. Is this a better volume for you? Bum ba da dum bum bum bum. I don't even have any background music going. Ooh. What does that say about me? See, it is much more clear. All right, good. Ozzy asked, which Barbarian energy drink do people like? Crimson Minotaur? Rock Smash? Monster hasn't changed much. Pneumonica says, as an alternative, in a Savage World setting I made, I had an herbal wine called Belina that removed 1 fatigue, but could be used only so often. Converting to D&D, you could remove 1 exhaustion with it, but you'd have to take a long rest before using it again. Or, it could come at a price, kind of like, what is it in Elder Scrolls? Skooma. Or Pesh in Pathfinder. Or, just other kind of stimulants. I think there's something in Fallout that's kind of an equivalent as well. Jet? Crimson Minotaur. Definitely Crimson Minotaur, says Bro Plier. I may be misremembering. Maybe Civil, but I also could be... I could be misremembering as well. I could say something, but I won't, says Chaotic. Well, you can. He's not a man who needs to hide behind dank tunes. Bad real world to fantasy gags are my life. Yeah, Fallout has a lot of chems. Jet, mentats, I think they are, right? They increase your brain power. I think stealth boys are technically a drug, aren't they? Actually, don't stealth boys mutate you if you use it too often? I'm currently swapping between alcohol and buff out addictions because I won't drop anything. It was about your lack of music. I was going to say, it says you can't afford a stereo. Huh. Well, there we go. Now we have some lilting tunes of ocean music. Chaotic, you're fine. Don't worry about it. But you know what? This is why Session 0 comes up. For the jokes. For the mechanics. For finding inspiration. Because, you know, through conversations like this, is what Dark Wolf is saying, you might say, oh yeah, Fallout does have Jet, Mentats, Radaway, and things like that. Maybe I can make these equivalents in the game. I hadn't thought about that before. And then, of course, you can always remake a character. If something is like, no, this is way too jarring. It won't fit. You know, I was kind of deciding between two characters. We already have 2 big McLarge Huges in our party. We don't need a third slab bulkhead. And so I want to play a Beastmaster Ranger instead. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Radaway doesn't have debuffs or an addiction. So, Diadems has been transformed by a kobold mage into a female goblin bard. Blue is the bourgeois, says Elsie. Well, you know, Chaotic Blue, if you notice, did snipe Stream Boss. She is the reigning queen. So if you put that little mushroom crown on her, she becomes Bluette. I guess, right? Well, bro, I mean, if you gotta go at some point in time, it's your life, man. Live life, be happy. Spend time with friends and do what you gotta do. So what happened today at our Session 0 was some people were still working on their characters. Level 1, standard PHB, though you have the expanded options in the Tomb of Annihilation to be an archaeologist or an anthropologist for your background. And I went around the table and I asked everyone, you know, the standard questions. So tell me about your character. You know, are you a female half-orc cleric or something? But I also was exploring what made your character. Tell me about your personality. Do you have something that's distinct about your character? And when you do that, it can help everyone else at the table maybe even loosen up a little bit about being reserved or about being a little scared to try to think of something very creative. For example, one of my players actually who, if any of you were reading the Curse of Strahd playthrough, who played Dax, her new character is a bit of a grizzled dwarven barbarian, mountain dwarf barbarian. Like, whew, talk about a beefy boy, right? But as she was describing him, he actually has a bit of a coward streak to him, because he feels like people are chasing after him. And on top of that, she said, well, and my character has one eye. And when she said that, I stopped for a moment. I said, all right, that's cool. And I have absolutely no problem if someone wants to play a character that has a particular, like a disability or some kind of a unique feature. And I told her what I'll do. Hey, Dolly, what I'll do, if your character is missing an eye, there may be some sight-based perception checks that I will give you disadvantage on. But, in exchange for that, because I appreciate compelling characters, and especially if you want to run a character that might have a challenge in some way, what you can do is, if you're creative about your lack of an eye, I might let you get away with some stuff. And I gave an example. It kind of made everyone go, ew, gross. But I said, you find like a big, like a 50 gold piece topaz. And I held up like a D20. And let's say someone is going to search your wagon and is getting ready to take that topaz. I would have no problem if you wanted to go whoop right in the socket and close it back up, and use it as a little hidden compartment for something. I mean, everyone at the table's like, but in that instance, because she's using this detriment as a benefit, I will play along with that benefit, because I, as the DM, might apply a detriment at some point in time. And also, someone came up with the idea: can we develop a cantrip that allows her to see in 3 dimensions? And then the joke went to, okay, so we're making a cantrip that adds 1d to your perception, so she goes from 2d to 3d, and it's getting some laughs and whatnot. I mean, it's a bad joke, but you know what? That also might open up something, because in this session we have a couple people who are rolling wizards, and if they want to develop spells, just like we were talking about with for the Frenzy Barbarian, for ways to take that edge off of the exhaustion, what if you do come up with a cantrip over the course of the game, or if not a cantrip, maybe a first level spell or something, that could restore a 3D depth of field to a cycloptic character, or to I don't know if that's an appropriate term, to a monoscopic character. I think that's the proper scientific term. And I would be fine with that. It's similar to, during this session 0, one of my players is playing a half-elf. And you know what the other half is? An orc. Half-elf, half-orc. Not a human-elf hybrid. And he had an entire backstory for it. And on top of that, he said, as he was describing his character, it's half and half. He's pretty much split in half, orc and elf. And what that led the conversation to is something called a Janus cat. Janus. You know how calicos are kind of the, whatever's left over from the soup inside the mama cat? I think they're almost always female. They have different splotches. They might have different colored eyes. Well, you can get a variety called a Janus cat, which is like two different... It is 2 different cats. If you were to test the genetics on one side or the other, they come back as different, even though they're together. And so, through the whatever circumstances that led to this character, which he went into, and it was actually tastefully done. It wasn't a savage encounter like what you might experience. We have a character who is mechanically a half-elf, but appears as a half-orc, half-elf. And doesn't that make for an interesting session 0? And doesn't that also have the people who are going over their characters before think back on what they offered to the DM and to the table, and say, oh, what can I do with my character? You know, there's another character that had heterochromatic eyes. No one decided to go with one less or one extra finger. You can offer. You'll bring the stream to your birthday party this year. Oh, thank you for if you're going to be doing that, bro. I hope that we can entertain you all. Alzy says, never underestimate the power of playing a gag idea straight. Some of the best D&D podcasts I've listened to are played by improv comedians who just keep rolling with it. Yeah. If you're willing to commit to something like that, then you can have a big influence on your character, and you prevent that adage of good characters can make jokes. Good jokes don't... good characters can make good jokes. Good jokes don't make good characters. If that's all it is. If the entire character is nothing more than a punchline. But instead, if you roll with it, you develop it, you think outside the box, bada boom, hey, forget about it. And I told him, I am perfectly happy with this. I'm perfectly fine. We'll roll with it. You know, don't turn into a Two-Face villain. But that could open up some interesting doors, and it could close some doors. Sort of like with my one-eyed dwarf. That could cause some detriments along the way, but there could be some good opportunities in the campaign for this dwarf to take advantage of. I knew someone who did a half-elf, half-giant. Never crossed my mind, but why now? Or why not? Yeah. Here's something else to add. The next time you play a half-elf, and this came up at the table. The next time you play a half-elf, or you're a DM and someone plays a half-elf, ask the player, okay, which elf? High elf? Wood elf? Drow? Or, depending on the environment, is it called something else? A sun elf? A moon elf? A dusk elf? Whatever. In half a ladrin? Mechanically, you're still a half elf out of the PHB, so nothing's broken. But that might add a bit of extra flavor to your character. Instead of just saying, well, I'm a half elf, and you leave it at that. You're denying one or both halves of your heritage here. You know, what if you were a, as humans come in all different shapes, sizes, and flavors, because as Alzy pointed out, I'm eating my enemies. What if your character had an Asian-inspired human half, and a drow other half? How would that play with your hair, your eye coloration, right? Coming from an Asian descent, you traditionally have brown eyes, black hair. Drow have white hair, and maybe like violet eyes, maybe red eyes, depending. You would have a light skin from an Asian descent, and you'd have a dark skin coming from a drow descent. How does that make your half-elf look? And how would that be different than if we took someone who was born into a very... into a Western European, almost like a noble, very fair skin, porcelain, blue eyes, blonde hair, creamy, smooth skin, with a high elf, which might share some a lot more complementary features. We have two different half-elves at our table. Mechanically, they're half-elves. But you would make that character more than just a half-elf. And a lot of these ideas can come out during a session 0. Dark Wolf, one of my players asked about having half-elf, half-dragonborn on Wednesday. Yeah, and I think something like that could work. You just say, sure, mechanically, you're a dragonborn. Maybe that's where you get your charisma from. Or I'm sorry, mechanically you're a half elf, but sure, mix and match. All that's really known is half of you is elf. We just presume human because we're very species centric. Does this dragonborn have ears? Ew, right? A dragonborn with actual like ears on the side of its head? How weird is that? Maybe because elves do grow fantastic hair and dragonborn don't. What if the combination of dragonborn and elf awakened some kind of some kind of reptilian DNA that has been dormant or has been a recessive trait, and now as a dragonborn you actually grow colorful feathers instead of scales or horns because your ancestors had feathers, presumably. I mean, I guess campaign world is what you want. So you don't have hair like an elf, but the elves, the elven part of you got, it awakened those genes lying dormant. And so now you're a dragonborn with beautiful plumage in addition to the scales. I guess it's analogous to saying I'm half Asian, rather than my mother is Japanese. Electro, I'm a human hybrid, IRL. So if you're a hybrid, you use both batteries and gasoline to fuel yourself. Yeah, one is more personal. Exactly, Elsie. Your dwarf is named Armdeer Chicken Skinner. Well, I know that you like, you like jokes and concepts about chickens, and if you put that into your character, bro player, that can help flesh out your character and have some fun times. Just be careful not to overdo a joke. Half-orcs can still be feared and depends on where they live or grow up. I consider myself a half-human, half-caffeine, says Owlsy. Darkwolf says, feather hair sounds amazing. Gimme. Yeah, right? See? Think about this stuff, and this is exactly what a Session 0 can unlock. All of you are sitting down, no one's rolled dice yet, lives aren't on the line, hopefully. And in fact, you can even have what I call kid adventures as a Session 0. Kid adventures mean you generate a level, like a race. And maybe a class? Or rather, you just get the hit points of your class. You don't get the features. But you get your race and you get your background. And you have kid adventures. So before you're actually an adventurer, you go on a little, like, whatever, Goosebumps mystery. You go on a Hardy Boys mystery. You go on kind of a Scooby-Doo where, you're young, you're bonded together, you don't have super mega powers. In Dragonlance, this is before Raceland takes his test at the Tower of High Sorcery, when everything is fine. His brother Caramon and his sister Kitiara are all rolling around, and, it's the golden age of the party, and everyone's optimistic, and going into the Goblin Cave is the big deal, because look, you're a commoner really at that point. You have, as a barbarian, you would have 12 hit points, maybe some con, and you have a couple skills from your background, maybe as like a cadet in the army, and so you go through this bonding experience. And, for doing that, your DM might even give you some rewards or something extra. Oh, see, Electro Dolly, you had my hopes up. I thought that we were promoting hybrid energy and synergy for the automobile industry. But I get what you're saying, and that's something that's nice to share too. And so you would consider yourself still a human. You just have your two halves of a whole that are together, but you still make one entity. Electro Dolly 5th edition, you're welcome to use anything that Wizards of the Coast has put out. Okay, Diadems, come back when you can. Bro Plier, even Warforged, you mean? Maybe he gives people chicken skin because he's so exciting. Oh, the alternate name for goosebumps, or goose pimples, as some people call it. Can you be half Kenku? Mechanically, there isn't something for it. Well, I guess. Well, so let's see. Birds and reptiles are related. Maybe you could roll Electro Dolly. Maybe you become a. Maybe what you can talk to Alzi about, right? Let's have a session 0 before we get into your character creation. Since birds and reptiles are related, if you want like a half Kenku, why don't you make a modified Dragonborn that has feathers, kind of like what we talked about, and instead of a breath weapon and a resistance, or you keep a resistance, the breath weapon becomes a cone of thunder damage, because instead of a Kenku's innate mimicry that it gets, the vocal cords of the Kenku mixed with your like avian, reptilian, like your kind of pterodactyl self, gives you a breath weapon that's not a traditional dragon breath weapon, but instead you get sonic damage, or it's called thunder damage in this edition. And so maybe you get kind of a crow reptile looking thing that has a thunder damage, as you or you kind of look like a Chatot in Pokemon fourth gen, as you can kind of mimic, but you do so without being able to control the volume of your voice, and it produces thunder damage instead of acid or fire. Alzi, I don't know. What do you think of that? Could she play a half Kenku if she rolled up a Dragonborn out of the player's handbook and you just made these modifications? Chaotic Blue, you can make anything your GM allows, and it may take a little time. It could. Half Kenku Dragonborns would be cool. Half Kenku, half human, or elf would be Wind Waker Rito. Alzi says that sounds pretty metal. Right. Hey, Dragonborn have... well, shoot. I think they actually have 4 fingers, but that means, as a Dragonborn, you can still throw up the horns. Right? Woo! I think there's a chart that says who can mate with who. Oh, so what you're talking about, Electro Dolly, in 3rd edition, there was a supplemental book, not published by Wizards, but was very close in identical to formatting, that had a chart similar to that, as well as a lot of other role-playing supplements inside it. In 5th edition, such things I don't think have been directly stated. So, if Alzi says you can be a Sonic Dragonborn that is reskinned as a partial Kenku with feathers and a beak instead of a dragon maw, then ta-da! Caca! 14 damage. Civil's got it. What's this thing on the chart with every box ticked? Bard. I'm okay with that. It's a pretty minor rework. And then what you could say is how you're resistant against sonic damage, because, look, as a dragon, if you breathe fire, you should probably be able to not burn your throat out. So you have fire resistance because you also breathe fire. How could a Kenku sonic damage dragon be able to, do some sort of Himalayan throat singing for 14 damage? Well, if you have tufts of feathers, if sonic damage comes your way, your feathers are just so fluffy that it diminishes the sonic damage coming in, because your feathers are just floofy and they just bounce around in the sonic damage. Bada boom, there we go. Yep, Alzy's got it. That's the name. Hey, Derek. I've seen that chart, but I'm okay with any hybrid. I've just been on Maddie's streams a lot more. Says, bro. Chaotic Blue, I've heard, lore-wise, halflings can't make with taller people. Someplace on Reddit, I think, and they cited some source. I don't know. Why couldn't you have a 3/4-ling? A human and a halfling? I mean, they would be about the same stature as a dwarf, just not as thick. Yeah, exactly, Dolly. You'd be very fluffy. Kenku-born would be resistant to silence effects. Yeah, feather sound baffles. There you go, Pneumonica. Yodeling. Yeah, like Himalayan throat singing. You're simply too floofy to be harmed. Well, you take half damage from sonic sources. But that's better than nothing. Especially because sonic damage is a rarer instance of damage. Which means your damage output may be resisted less. And in fact, if you scream hard enough at statues, or, I don't know, glasses of water, you might be able to break them with your thunder damage, as structures and items like that tend to be vulnerable to thunder. In return, though, you know, not a lot of people can resist thunder damage either, and the reason for that is because it's such a rare type. And how would you baffle the sound coming back at you? We have now not only explained how you can project your sound, but how you can also take the same punishment back. Something about halflings liking to have a good time without worry. I know, Alzy. Dwarves are your bread and butter. Yeah, there you go, bro, Plier. See, now you're playing to your DM, and he's going to give you a level 10 spell because of that. Which is also why you have a session 0. Because your DM might let slip some favorites. Like, oh, you know, I'll tell you, everyone. Yeah, keep working on your characters. I'll tell you, though, as you were doing that. Oh, yeah, standard array. I had an awesome, like, sausage and mushroom pizza last week. Oh, my God. And then, you know, another person already has their characters done. It's like, I know, right? Did you use that coupon, too? And meanwhile, you're over here making your character, and you're like, sausage and mushroom pizza, huh? I know how to get a level 10 spell out of my DM. Wink. The Thunder Breath weapon, walking battering ram. Kind of. Dwarves and halflings is a stout heart. Yeah, because it even says that stout heart halflings might be cousins to dwarves. Session 0 is mostly about pick your favorite player and helping them cheat. True fact. What's the difference between a kobold and a lizard folk? Size? A culture, but it's also about size. Sometimes you can do weird things like a lizard man with no teeth, so you switch the bite damage to bludgeoning. Kobolds are kind of sniveling little dog lizards. Lizard folk are a lot taller and stronger. Kobolds, at least in D&D, tend to think that they are effectively dragonborn, that they are of draconic heritage, that they are, you know, rightful heirs, that they will happily serve dragons because they are dragons. In fact, I ran an NPC named Kick, who was a dragon, and everyone just let him roll with it, and he felt really happy about himself. Lizard folk are their own people and culture, and instead of focusing more on draconic aspects, because kobolds can get wings, lizard folk probably have, like, frills. You know, think like bearded lizards, frilly lizards. You know, if you live in a tropical environment, think of iguanas or little anoles. Or think of other little lizards that have, like, neck frills or side frills. Or you look like the dinosaur in the first Jurassic Park movie that could spit that blinding tar, right? It went, right, and you had this big colorful frill out that you could help to communicate with other people too. Hey, Zuller Pie, welcome. Pneumonica says, 2nd edition kobolds are the only true kobolds. Do orcs and hobgoblins get along? They can. I mean, like with anything else, it's like asking, do humans and elves get along? They can. Oh, Broplier, was that it? A super war race? I mean, that's all of them. Arguably humans. Oh, Derek. Great explanation. You know, some insight that you can take into consideration between a lizard folk and a kobold. You know, because Dolly, and this is something for you to consider. When you start getting out into these fringe races, you have to think differently, right? You aren't a human. You have different standards and values. Your cultures and values are different. The way you express yourself is different. If you're a lizard folk, you might not have muscles in your face because you have the longer lizard face, right? You might not be capable of smiling. And so if you're happy at something, and you want to laugh or smile, you might just open your mouth. And a lot of people might get freaked out because you're sitting there with your eyes open going, while you're staring at them intently. But that's supposed to be your smile. Or if you want to laugh, you might not be able to have the throaty laugh of a lizard folk. Oh, Coca, thank you very much. If you laugh as a lizard folk, it might come out as... And that's your laugh. That is a sincere guffaw in lizard folk. But people will think that you're coughing up a hairball, which is extra weird because you don't have hair. They'll think that you're choking, or they'll think that you're making some sort of like a war hiss at people. Because that's how you laugh. Alzi, is that not how people smile? Alzi says it takes a village to raise a murderer. There is, by the way, there is a side RPG system called Kobolds Ate My Baby. You can look into it. All right, plunder loot. I should have. I'm hoping for Dargans next week. This week, our budget had to go into the new Magic set entirely, and on top of that, we're also looking at a couple different distributors so that I'm not just pinched through one. So hang in there. I am working on getting in more Dargans, but it's the quarterly release of MTG, which is depending on the store, we're talking thousands of dollars kind of invested into the product. So, I had to make sure that sort of stuff got priority. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get Dargans in for this week. I thought it might have been coming in, but it just wasn't in the cards. I'm sorry. Zuler Pie, nice lizard laugh. Oh, thank you. Do either kobolds or lizard folk do the tongue thing? Probably. You know, they'll just keep their mouth open and go, well, thank you, Coco. Although, I mean, try and keep things in the realm of PG-13, though, okay? Lizard folk should lick their eyeballs. Well, yeah, right, to keep them wet. Why wouldn't it be normal for lizard folk to do that? Oh, is there's a new Venom trailer or something that's been released, Eric? Yeah, Alzi, please control your lust, Cocoplier. Everyone else has to. It's not fair if you get to express that. In fact, if you want to see something interesting, I mean, if you want to lick your eyeballs to keep them moist, you can. I don't see why there's not a mechanical detriment. Heck, if tieflings can have tails, as a lizard folk, why can't you be able to lick your own eyeballs? Okay. If you want to see some interesting synergy here, there is a species called a caiman. And the butterflies live in this coexistence with the caiman because the butterflies actually use their proboscis to drink the eye moisture or the tears from the crocodiles. And they do that, if I recall correctly, without just going to a Wikipedia article. It's because of the salt or certain proteins that are in the eyes of the reptiles. And so the butterflies will actually come up to them, and very delicately, it's not painful. They live in harmony with each other, but from noses and eyes and such, the butterflies get sustenance and protection, because who's going to come up on the crocodile or the caiman? And then the caiman just gets to look cute, because that's a goal in life. Forsaken, nothing like coming into the stream and the first thing you hear is lick your own eyes. We're keeping it interesting in our Session 0 talk, Forsaken, because this is where cool ideas are hatched. Electro, well, I think I'm definitely going to be a Kenku. I don't know why, but I super like them, and I was looking at the races. Okay, so Dolly... Oh, Mantarock. Oh, thank you, man. Or, I'm sorry, thank you, Elder Being, who keeps the other three in check and balance, despite being kind of a gross, kind of always dying homunculus of Eldritch energy and knowledge. Two scenes. One is the encounter with the SWAT team. The other is during the home invasion. We want Mr. Drake's property back, says Derek. Alzi, thank you for turning into another episode of Things That Sound Really Weird Out of Context. Da 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 da. Would a half tiefling, half dragonborn have a swishy tail? I guess you'll have to bring that up with your DM. Small giggle at the outstanding. Now let's bite all their heads off and pile them in the corner. Why would we do that? Yeah, they drink crocodile tears. Your tears are delicious. Yep, the face on that caiman. Yeah, you know you jelly. I'm starting to fade out of consciousness, says Bro Applier. They all die together according to Keikaku. But I am the DM. Well then, Dark Wolf, make it happen. Yeah, Forsaken, we're talking about we're going through what can happen in a Session 0 and why it's important, and why a Session 0 is important for a game. You know what you can do. You can run a kid adventure. You run ideas past. Everyone makes their vanilla character, but then we spice it up in Session 0 because we all get together and we think of, we think of weird ideas or ways to play off of each other. I mean, the look on this face, right? I mean, you want to talk... Is this not a happy boy up here? This could be your character. Have you ever thought that you would play a lizard folk with a crown of butterflies? In fact, as a lizard folk, maybe you even keep, like, some butterfly cages on your character, and you grow and you breed them, right? And you grow little cocoons and whatnot, so you have some butterfly friends around you. And, or if butterflies die, you have a way to preserve them, and you make a crown of butterfly wings out of them. That's the look of a lizard man druid. Mantarok, a good boy. Yes. Good boy or best boy? So yeah, isn't nature wonderful, right? You just gotta look a little. All right, so we're getting to a break time here. Dolly, it sounds like you might have an idea for your character. Hey, Irony Golem, just been making a Lizard King Druid NPC for a module. Hey, Irony. One day I shall have a trash panda. Hopefully so, Mantarok. Dolly, do you want to stay in chat, or would you like to get on voice as we go through your character creation? Kenku, little and cheeky. Okay, Electro. Alright, so what we're gonna do... Surprise, surprise, Derek likes the Ventru race. Derek, you got called out, brother. What are you gonna do? Hey, King, I was told by someone there was an alligator stream going on. Lies and misinformation. These are not alligators. These are caimans, King. And butterflies are drinking their tears. I mean, look at that. Look at how cruel nature is. I still prefer Tremere. Ah. There you go, Mantarok. Playing the, I mean, as much as you want to say that Venturer are the patron's choice, Tremere are patrons perhaps in a different way. They're definitely not pleb tier. That's a bet reptiliest of you, King, says Alzy. And King hisses. Shush! Oh. Alright, everyone, stick around, and this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go to break. Dolly will coordinate through Discord. I'll get everything set up and ready to go. And, Dolly, during session 0, make sure you tell your DM, please no bully. If you don't say it, I can't guarantee it won't happen. Irony Golem, my Jurassic World continent is coming to the conclusion that humans are a subspecies of orc, and ultimately when they vanish, all that's left is half-orcs. Ah, like a hybrid. You gotta watch out, though, because if you start splicing in frog DNA into the half-orcs, because they're also green, and you think that you've made only a race of females, things are gonna happen. And I'll tell ya, Irony Golem, as much as there's a kick for monster girls going on right now, and especially about a particular crown in a particular Nintendo franchise, have you ever considered, wow, a human girl race? Ah, in your world, that would be the exotic thing that people would make. And of course, what could happen afterwards is in the realm of anime and other fan art. I'll leave it at that, because I'm going to go to break before I blush.